Hi, today's video is gonna be an easy tutorial on how to render a house in Artlantis. So this is what the house looks like in 3D in ArchiCAD. This is the entryway, and in the back we have the terrace and the back of the house. Okay, so what we're gonna do is export it, save it as an Artlantis file. So File, Save As, and here you're gonna save it as an Artlantis Render Studio file. I'm gonna leave these settings as they are and export. Okay, once the file is exported, we're gonna open it. Okay, so I've opened my Artlantis file that I saved before, and first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go here to the Perspective tab, and we're gonna use the Lighting Heliodon. That means the sun. Okay, once we did that, we're gonna see our house a little better. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to here to the Heliodon settings, and I'm gonna set this sunlight to manual. This way I can set the position of my sun in the floor plan, so if I go here to 2D view, I can make the sun shine from wherever I want, as you can see. Okay, I usually leave it from behind the point of view that we're looking at. Next I'm gonna activate my shadows, and I usually switch this all the way to the right, so that the shadows are not very sharp, but they are a little bit blurred. Okay, next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna activate also my clouds. I'm gonna maybe play a little bit with the settings so that it's not that dark. Okay, next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna activate my ground. I'm gonna make my ground visible so that we don't have this black area over here. So I'm gonna click Ctrl+I. So in the model info we can activate the infinite ground, and you have to set the height of it below your slab that you have in ArchiCAD. So my ground in ArchiCAD is set as at minus 50 centimeters. So I'm gonna set it here at minus 51 centimeters. Okay, now as you can see, we can see everything in our model, and also the ground. Okay, I'm gonna click on OK, and now let's set the textures of our ground. We go here at Shaders and Lawn, and I'm just gonna drag, this is the lawn that I usually like to use, I'm just gonna drag it over here. If your lawn didn't change, it's because there's a texture from ArchiCAD. So as you can see, I keep dragging it, but it doesn't change. That's because when I select this texture, we have this texture mapping from ArchiCAD. What you have to do is delete it. And now we can see the better looking lawn that we have in Artlantis. Okay, the same thing, I'm gonna select it. I usually like to get the shininess down of the lawn that comes in ArchiCAD, in Artlantis. And now I'm gonna select this, Ctrl+C, and then paste it on the infinite ground in the back. So I have lawn everywhere. Okay, let's get a little bit closer to the model. Okay, so the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start adding textures to the model, because the ones that come within ArchiCAD could look a little bit better. So I'm gonna go to Surface. No, I'm gonna go to Coding, I'm sorry. I'm gonna use Coding 003. And how you add textures is very basic in Artlantis. You just have to select the texture that you want here, and just drag it on the texture that you want to use it on. I don't like that it's so yellow, so I'm gonna select it again, and I'm gonna mix in here white. Okay, so that is how you have your white texture in ArchiCAD, so outside coating look. Okay, the next thing I'm gonna delete from here, the top part, the wood part, I'm gonna delete the texture mapping again. Okay, so once we deleted the texture mapping for the upper part, we're gonna go to, I usually like to use construction materials that I found online, so not necessarily the ones that come default in ArchiCAD. And I have some shaders over here. I have here some wood facades materials, so from here I'm gonna use maybe this one, let's see how this one looks. I'm not loving it that much. Let's try a different one. It's fine. This one I'm kind of okay with, but I am gonna darken it a bit, so I'm gonna hit here mix, and I'm just gonna bring this a little bit down so it's not as bright. Okay, so that I'm happy with. Okay, let's use from natural stone facades. I'm gonna use this texture here, and I'm gonna put it on the base of the house. Okay, there, and I'm also gonna put it over here. Okay, that already looks better. Okay, I'm actually going to bring this a little bit up so I can see my textures a little bit better. Okay, and here I have mineral floors. I'm gonna use this concrete pavers for the sidewalk. Also this I want it to be a little bit darker, so I'm gonna mix, and I'm gonna darken this gray for it. Okay, from time to time remember to save your project so that you don't lose all your progress, because in Artlantis you don't have that backup file that is created as in ArchiCAD. Okay, let's do maybe the deck floors over here that I want to do. So wood floors, I'm not really liking any of these that I have here, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use some images that I have, some texture images that I have online. So how you do that is basically you just save the files on your computer. So if you find texture files, image type files online that you want to use, you just save them on the computer and you just add them here. You add the folder that you saved them in, and they're going to appear here as one of these files. So I've saved them somewhere on my computer. Okay, so here I have basically a bunch of textures that I used in my previous projects. Let's see if we can find something here that we like a little bit better. Okay, so these are some wood planks that I used before on decks in my rendering, so let's see how this looks here. You just drag this one as well, but because it is an image you have to do the settings a bit differently. So here you have to make sure you repeat the texture vertically and horizontally. I like to mix here as well darker color. Okay, and the size of it I usually like to do, so maybe double it. Now it's 64, let's do 120 centimeters. And as you can see now, it looks as it should. Okay, but this I want to set to be at 90 degrees, so like that, the position of it, I want the direction of the planks I want it to change, and I'm gonna use the same texture over here. I'm just gonna do the same settings over here. Okay, so we've set the textures to the house, the deck. Let's set the textures a little bit for this terrace. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to shaders surface, and I like to use this sunblind for this sunblind that I put over here. I'm gonna put the transparency of it to be a little bit bigger. So this is how this looks right now. Let's do the textures of this outside furniture that we have. Let's do I'm gonna go to surface again, and I think we have a fabric texture over here, and I'm gonna put it over the fabric of the couches. Again, I'm just gonna mix the color white with them. Okay, I'm gonna use one of my textures that I have from previous projects again. Okay, so this is a wood texture that I found online. I'm just gonna place it here on my wood elements for my terrace. I'm gonna also repeat it horizontally and vertically, and here for the projection type I'm gonna put orthogonal. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, but anyways, and this I'm actually going to lighten a little bit so that the texture is a little bit more visible. And I'm gonna use the same thing for the outside furniture, but first I'm gonna delete again the texture mapping that this has on it, over here and from over here as well. The table has some on it, and also the chairs. Okay, so now that we did all of that, the terrace is basically done. What I'm gonna do is add some flowers over here in this area. So also for this you can just find online Artlantis libraries and you can just take your pick from there. So I'm gonna just go to flowers, cornflower. These are just some simple white flowers, and I'm just gonna place them here. If you can't see the actual flower bulbs, what you have to do is use custom date, and then you, the bulbs automatically appear. You just have to input a month when the bulbs are in flower. So if they are a little bit too big, you can go to your floor plan, maybe place them a little bit more centered on the object that you want to have them on, and then just here you can adjust the size of them. And also if they change again, just do custom date again. Okay, so then once you've placed them, you can just multiply them by holding down the Alt key and just clicking and dragging a copy of it. Also, I'm gonna drag some over here in the front where I have another object like that holds flowers. Okay, so let's maybe change the point of view so that we can see over here in the front what's happening as well. Okay, so let's also do this greenery here look a little bit better. Just gonna copy the lawn from the ground, I'm gonna paste it over here, but first delete the texture mapping. Okay, now paste. Now usually for this I like to set the transparency a little bit higher. Okay, and let's do here the outside tiles for the entryway. Let's put some outdoor tiles over there as well. So I'm just gonna use this stone floor texture and place it here. And maybe let's darken it a little bit. Okay, let's take care of the fence. Actually let's first do the window texture because it's a little bit too see-through. So I'm gonna go to shaders, a surface, and I'm just gonna put in glazing freshnel, and let's play a little bit with the settings of it. Let's do the transition a little bit lower so that we don't see everything that's happening on the inside. Maybe the shininess, no, let's leave the shininess a little bit. Okay. Maybe I'm gonna do the transition a little bit lower. Now let's take care of the fence. So for the side fence I'm just gonna put some chain link fencing. I'm gonna change the color of it. Not very black, but maybe some type of gray. Okay, let's do the poles to be chromium. And now the main entry gate, let's copy the white texture from the walls of the house and place them here. And for this, I'm gonna copy it again, but I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna do the color again darker. So I'm gonna mix some darker gray over here. Okay, and also for the wood I'm just gonna copy the texture from the house and I'm gonna place it here. Also remove the texture mapping. And now copy it. Maybe adjust a little bit the size of it. Okay, so let's move around a little bit, see what we have so far. Okay, so I am pretty happy with how this looks. The last step is to just put in some trees. So for that I usually use 2D trees instead of 3D ones because the 3D objects take really long to render. So if you, again, if you Google billboards for Atlantis or 2D objects for Atlantis, you should find a bunch. So I have them saved over here under billboards, and I'm just gonna put in some trees. What I like to do, this is maybe a little bit too big. What I like to do is set the transparency of it a bit higher, so that it doesn't take over everything. Maybe we want to move them a little bit on the outside of the property, so that we can still see the house. So let's place it here, and then in 2D I'm just gonna move it. Okay, so once you're done placing your textures and maybe some 2D and 3D objects, let's also put in some people. So again, you can just Google Artlantis billboards, Artlantis 2D people, and you should find a bunch online. Let's just use Angelina Jolie. Okay, and one thing we forgot is to put a texture on the roof. Let's take care of that right now. I'm just gonna go here to shaders, roof tile, and I'm just gonna put in this gray one. And for the projection I'm gonna put horizontal, because then it looks better. But one problem that I have, and I only notice it now, is that I have the same texture on all of the roofs, so even the side and underneath the roof is the same, so that's not okay, because it doesn't really look good. You can see the tiles here on the side, and that's just ugly. So what I'm gonna do is save my project, and then I'm gonna close it, and then I'm gonna go to my ArchiCAD file, and I'm gonna select all of my roofs, and I'm gonna go to settings and change the texture of them. So under model, I'm gonna leave this only on top, so the texture that I have now everywhere, I'm just gonna leave it on top. And for the sides, I'm just gonna change it to, let's say, this one. And underneath maybe this one. Okay. So now the texture should be fine in Artlantis. What I'm gonna do is save this as a different file, so with a different name. Okay, so once I opened the file that I saved a few seconds ago, I'm gonna use a really useful feature of Artlantis. So instead of having to input all of the textures and all of my objects from scratch, in Artlantis what you can do is use a reference file. So you go to File, use Reference File, and I'm going to use as a reference the file that I worked on before. I'm going to hit here Replace Current Shaders with Reference File Shaders, and here I'm going to import everything that I have here. So add all over here, and then open. Okay, so now we can see that all of the textures from our file that we worked on before are still over here. So I'm just gonna leave the roof tiles as they are. So now they are correct, they are only on top of the roof. And for the side of the roof, I'm gonna use the same wood texture that I used over here for the wood elements of the entryway and of the terrace in the back. So I'm gonna go to where I have my texture saved. Okay, and I'm just gonna select the texture that I want to use, so this one, put it over here on the side. maybe lighten it a little bit. So I'm gonna place it underneath as well. And do the same settings for it. Okay, now let's make sure we have everything. Okay, so I can see now that I forgot to put a texture for the gutter and the downspout. So what I'm gonna do is go and select the shader. So this one looks good, Metal 02. I'm just gonna really darken it so it doesn't pop out as much. Okay. So right now I'm pretty happy with how it looks. What I'm gonna do next is just do some renderings. So in order for your rendering to look as good as possible, what you have to do is go over here, click on this render button and go to options. Here for anti-aliasing, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, I might be pronouncing it totally wrong. I'm gonna put high, radiosity I'm gonna do high, and here I'm gonna put 120 dpi's. And for this I'm gonna do 1200, and for the height maybe 900. That's the proportion that I usually like to use. I'm gonna go OK and click render later. Maybe adjust the camera a little bit. Okay, so this is how rendering from the front is gonna look like. So let's do one like this. Okay, now let's do a rendering from the back. I'm gonna add a perspective view. And I'm just gonna move the camera in the back. Okay, and switch the sun so that it's coming again from the back. Okay, and now I'm just gonna render it from here as well. Okay, so my second rendering was done. I'm just gonna keep on adding perspective views and doing a bunch more renderings. And this was my video on how to render houses in ArchiCAD. Hope this was useful to you, and if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Bye!